the unbelievable true story of Elijah. He was a powerful prophet who could call down fire from the sky and raise the dead. Yet he was also a man who ran for his life and begged God to die. This is the unfiltered story of Elijah, his triumphs, his fears, and his unshakable faith in the face of darkness. In an age of corruption and idolatry, one lone prophet stood against an entire kingdom's false gods. On Mount Carmel, Elijah faced 450 prophets of Baal in a dramatic winner-take-all showdown that would prove once and for all who was truly God. And unlike any story before or after, Elijah's life didn't end with death. Instead, in a moment that has baffled scholars for centuries, he was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind, riding a chariot of fire into eternity. This is the story of Elijah, the prophet who carried both the fire of heaven and the weight of human weakness. Section 1. The Man Who Stopped the Rain. Our story begins in the 9th century BCE, in the northern kingdom of Israel, a nation in a deep spiritual crisis. The king Ahab was morally adrift, but the true power was his wife Jezebel, a Phoenician princess. She brought with her the worship of her god, Baal, the deity of storms and rain. Under Jezebel's fanatical influence, Baal worship exploded. She installed hundreds of her own prophets while systematically hunting down and executing the prophets of the one true God, Yahweh. Into this darkness, Elijah appears. The Bible introduces him with jarring suddenness, without lineage or preamble. A man from the rugged hills of Gilead, he strides into the royal court and delivers a message of shattering power to King Ahab. As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years, except at my word. Consider the audacity. An unknown man from nowhere declares war not with a sword, but with the weather itself. He directly challenges the supposed power of Baal on his own turf. You believe Baal is the god of rain? Then let us see what he can do when the God of Israel seals the heavens. As weeks turn into months, the sky remains an unforgiving dome. The soil cracks, and the famine Elijah prophesied settles over the land. And the prophet, God instructs him, "Go east and hide yourself by the brook Cherith." As the kingdom starves, Elijah is sustained by a quiet miracle. Ravens bring him bread and meat each morning and evening. But the drought is relentless, and in time, even Elijah's brook dries up. God gives him a new, strange instruction. Go at once to Zarephath. I have directed a widow there to supply you with food. A widow in a time of famine was the most vulnerable person imaginable. To ask her for help was to ask for the impossible. Elijah arrives and finds her gathering sticks. He calls to her,
"Please, may I have some water?"
As she goes, he pushes further. "And bring me, please, a piece of bread."
These are the last of our supplies.
As surely as the Lord your God lives, she says, I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug.
I have nothing left but these few sticks and a handful of flour. How can I feed my son and myself? I have nothing left.
This was the very edge of human existence.
Fear not, wrath. The jar says the Lord. The jar are oil. And
don't be afraid.
Make a small cake for me first, and the Lord will provide.
For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says.
Do not fear. The flour and oil will not run out until the Lord sends rain upon the land.
He is asking her to risk her son's life on nothing but a promise. In a profound act of faith, she does as Elijah told her. The miracle unfolds in the quiet, daily rhythm of life. Every day there was just enough flour and just enough oil. It never overflowed. It was simply enough. A life lived in daily dependence on God's provision. But the test was not over. Tragedy strikes. The widow's son falls ill and dies. Her faith snaps. She turns on Elijah, her grief mixed with rage.
Oh my mommy, remove my sin and kill my son.
Elijah simply says, "Give me your son." He takes the boy's body, carries him upstairs, and cries out to God in a raw, desperate plea.
Have you brought God? Have you brought even on this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die?
Then he stretches himself out on the boy 3 times, crying,
Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him.
and God heard him. The boy's life returned. Elijah carries the living child to his mother with the simple words,
Look, your son is alive.
The woman's response changes everything. Her faith is reborn, now deeper than ever. She looks at Elijah and declares,
Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth.
Section 2, the showdown on Mount Carmel. After 3 years, the land is a wasteland. King Ahab has spent this time hunting for Elijah, blaming the prophet, not his own sin, for the nation's suffering. Finally, God's instruction comes to Elijah. Go and present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the land. The time for hiding is over. When the 2 men meet, Ahab's greeting is pure venom.
You daggers, you are challenge the word of your king.
Elijah's response is a thunderclap of truth.
You have forsaken the commandments of the Lord.
But you and your father's family have.
You have forsaken the commandments of the Lord.
He then issues a public challenge on Mount Carmel. He tells Ahab, now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal. The day arrives. On one side stands a lone, weather-beaten prophet. On the other, 450 state-sponsored priests. Elijah steps forward and his voice rings out,
We need an advisor that you were God in Israel.
if the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. The people are silent. Elijah lays out the terms. 2 bulls on 2 altars with no fire. They will call on their gods. The God who answers by fire, he is God. The contest is brilliantly designed. If Baal, the god of storms and lightning, could not produce a single spark, he was nothing. The prophets of Baal go first. From morning until noon they cry, Baal, answer us. But there is only silence. Elijah begins to mock them.
Where is your God now?
Shout louder, he taunts. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened. Goaded by his taunts, the prophets descend into a frenzy, gashing themselves with swords and spears. But there was no response. As evening approaches, Elijah calls the people closer. He rebuilds a ruined altar to the Lord with 12 stones, 1 for each tribe of Israel. Then he does something that defies all logic. He commands water to be poured over the offering, not once but 3 times, until it floods the altar and fills a trench around it. He has made the miracle impossible by human means. With the nation watching, Elijah offers a simple prayer. Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then it happens. The fire of the Lord falls. It consumes everything, the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, the soil, and all the water in the trench. The people fall on their faces. their spiritual paralysis shattered, and a single cry erupts. The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God. The victory is absolute. Elijah commands the people to seize the prophets of Baal and executes them. Immediately after, Elijah tells Ahab he hears the sound of a heavy rain and climbs Carmel to pray. He sends his servant to look toward the sea 7 times. On the 7th time, the servant returns. A cloud as small as a man's hand is rising from the sea. That is all Elijah needs. Soon the sky grows black, the wind rises, and a torrential downpour begins. The drought is over. In a final display of divine power, Elijah outruns Ahab's royal chariot all the way to Jezreel. He is invincible, or so it seemed. We have just witnessed a moment of divine power. But the prophet's journey is far from over. It is in his coming moments of weakness that we often find the most profound truths. If this story is resonating with you, a simple gesture of support helps ensure these accounts from history continue to be told. Now let us follow the prophet down from the mountain. Section 3, the sound of silence. Elijah arrives in Jezreel, victorious. Ahab tells his wife Jezebel everything: the contest, the fire, the execution of her prophets. Jezebel's reaction is not awe. It is pure, murderous rage. She sends a messenger to Elijah with an oath. May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them. And the man who stood fearlessly before kings and prophets breaks. The scripture says, Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. It is a shocking human moment. He had expected national revival, but the system was still in place, and its fiercest defender now wanted him dead. He was physically and spiritually exhausted, and in that state, fear consumed him. He flees into the wilderness, collapses under a tree, and utters the most desperate prayer of his life. I have had enough, Lord, he says. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. This is the cry of a man who has hit rock bottom, crushed by loneliness and a sense of failure. How does God respond? Not with anger, but with compassion. As Elijah sleeps, an angel touches him. Get up and eat. By his head is bread baked on hot coals and a jar of water. This happens twice. God's initial response is not a theological lecture, but gentle, practical care. Strengthened, Elijah travels for 40 days to Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. He enters a cave and the word of the Lord comes to him. What are you doing here, Elijah? The question is an invitation. Elijah pours out his heart. I have been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too. His feeling of isolation has become his reality. God's response is simple. Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. A powerful wind shatters the rocks, but the Lord was not in the wind. An earthquake shakes the mountain, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. A fire, the very element of his greatest triumph, appears, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there came a sound. The ancient Hebrew describes it as a still, small voice, a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he knew. This was God. He pulled his cloak over his face and stood at the mouth of the cave. The prophet of fire and storm had to learn that God's presence is not only in the spectacle. In Elijah's burnout, God came with a whisper of intimate care.
Behold, the glory of creation.
God doesn't argue. Instead, he gives him a renewed purpose, a future partner, and a divine promise. A purpose. Go back and anoint new kings and a successor. A partner, in his successor, Elisha, he will no longer be alone, and a promise that directly confronts his despair. Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal. You are not alone. With that sentence, God dismantled the lie of isolation that had fueled Elijah's depression. Elijah leaves Horeb a changed man. He finds Elisha plowing a field and throws his cloak around him. The lonely prophet is lonely no more. Section 4, the prophet of justice in the chariot of fire. Elijah's renewed purpose leads to a confrontation over justice. King Ahab covets a vineyard belonging to a man named Naboth, who refuses to sell his family inheritance. So Jezebel forges letters, hires scoundrels to falsely accuse Naboth of cursing God and the king, and has the innocent man stoned to death. As Ahab goes to
You dare to challenge the Maya!
So you have
Harvest
found me,
is
my
near,
enemy.
and the vines have spoken. We
Elijah's
must prepare.
reply is chilling, pronouncing God's judgment. I have found you because you have sold yourself to do evil. In the very place where dogs licked up Naboth's blood, dogs will lick up your blood. Yes, yours. And dogs will devour Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. In time, every word of this prophecy comes true. Elijah's time on earth is ending. He and his successor, Elisha, are traveling together. Elisha refuses to leave his mentor's side. At the Jordan River, Elijah strikes the water with his cloak, and the waters part for them to cross on dry ground. On the other side, Elijah asks, "Tell me, what can I do for you before I am taken from you?" Elisha's request is bold. "Let me inherit a double portion of your spirit." He is asking to be recognized as the primary heir to Elijah's prophetic office.
Listen closely, for the path ahead is both challenging and rewarding.
As they walk and talk, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appear, separating them, and in a whirlwind, Elijah is taken up into heaven. Elisha sees it all. He cries out, "My father! My father! The chariots and horsemen of Israel!" He then picks up the cloak that fell from Elijah, goes to the Jordan, and strikes the water. Where now is the Lord, the God of Elijah? The water divides, The spirit of Elijah now rests on him. The story of Elijah is one of breathtaking miracles and profound human weakness. He was a prophet so revered he would appear centuries later alongside Moses at the transfiguration of Jesus Christ. Yet for many, the most enduring part of his story is not the fire on the mountain, but the whisper in the cave. The moment a broken prophet, convinced of his own failure, was met not with judgment, but with the tender, restorative care of his God. His life reveals that our moments of greatest weakness do not disqualify us from God's purpose. It shows that God understands our human frailty,
The path is long and the burden is heavy.
our burnout, and our despair. Elijah's story stands as a timeless monument to the truth that even the strongest can fall.
In the quiet of this moment, I find peace and wisdom.
To acknowledge our exhaustion and to cry out to God from our own wilderness. Elijah was a man who felt utterly alone, but was not. He was a man who thought his work was for nothing, but it was not.
Guide me, for I am lost in this wilderness of doubt.
But instead was swept into heaven in a chariot of fire. His life is a testament to a God who uses flawed,
Oh, great spirits of the mountains, hear my plea.
a God not just of thunderous power, but also of the gentle whisper. The God of Elijah is still here, calling, sustaining, speaking. We only need to have the courage to listen. Elijah's story reminds us that God's miracles are not confined to the past. He is still the God who provides bread, famine, fire and despair, and whispers in silence. Even prophets fall into fear. Even the strongest grow weary. But the same God who fed Elijah in the wilderness still restores us today. When we feel alone, unseen, or unworthy, He reminds us that His power is made perfect in weakness. The fire on Mount Carmel proved His supremacy. The whisper on Mount Horeb proved His tenderness. What fire from heaven is God calling you to kindle in your life? How do you find strength when life feels overwhelming? Share your story or your favorite verse below. Let others see the God who still answers. Not just by fire, but by faith. And don't forget to share this story of Elijah, so others may also encounter the same God. Powerful, merciful, and near to those who listen for His whisper. If this story touched your heart, then like, share, and subscribe. If you believe the Lord is God.